This morning, the story of the bomb, Bikini Island, and a long-running fight to go home. These are the Bikini Islanders, but this is not Bikini Island. This is Kili, 500 miles away. The Bikini Atoll is still trying to recover from 12 years of U.S. nuclear bomb testing. Today, the Bikini Islanders are virtual wards of our government. They get handouts of everything, from food to cars. In 1968, about 100 Bikinians went home for 10 years. They worked to resettle their native lands, not knowing they were being exposed to high levels of radiation. Recently, the U.S. government offered $75 million to settle all the claims for damages, including skin cancer and birth defects. The government says that money should cover the damages and the final cleanup of Bikini. The Bikinians disagree. They have until November 1st to appeal. Their story and our pictures come from a new National Geographic Explorer documentary airing this Sunday night on Atlanta superstation TBS. Jonathan Weiskell, the attorney fighting for the Bikini Islanders, is here on one side, as well as Howard Hills, the attorney for the Reagan administration's interagency group on Micronesia. Good morning, gentlemen. Morning. Mr. Weiskell, $75 million sounds like a lot of money, especially for a couple of thousand islanders. Why aren't you satisfied?
Well, I think when you look at the 42-year history of the Bikinians' exile from their homeland, they are looking at compensation, but most important, they are looking and hoping for a cleanup of their islands. And those two goals are linked. They want compensation for what happened to them. They want compensation for the damage to their islands, for possible health defects, but they want their islands cleaned up. And that is their goal today, and that is not covered by that amount of money, and that amount of money would not come close to fulfilling the goal of the cleanup.
Well, the government did promise they could go back at some point at the time they were moved off the island.
Yes, and
it is more expensive. You cleaned up a neighboring island that cost $120 million. Why do you think $75 million is going to do it?
well, I think that we have to set the record straight on a couple of facts. First of all, in addition to the $75 million that's to be paid to them under the settlement that we have in place, there is an additional $20 million resettlement trust fund that already is in existence and is in possession of the Bikini people. And furthermore, we have an outstanding obligation. We've agreed with them, with the government of the Marshall Islands and with the Bikini people, that we will seek further appropriations as necessary to complete the resettlement process. So it's not just $75 million. In fact, since the people of Bikini were removed from the island in 1946, the United States government has already provided over $119 million in compensation, and we have an additional, we've told them we have a commitment, we will go back for more money as necessary. But the fact of the matter is that under the leadership of Secretary of Interior Hodel and Secretary of State Schultz, we've tried to not just throw money at the problem, but move beyond the stage where Washington bureaucrats decide what's going to happen and where the Bikinians are going to go. And so the requirement for completing this commitment and fulfilling our obligation and keeping our promise to the Bikini people is that we go to Congress and seek appropriations based on an agreement between the Bikinians and the U.S. government on what the final approach to resettlement and rehabilitation of the island will be. And it's Mr. Weiskell's doing his job by expressing impatience with that process, but we really feel that we're very close to being able to meet that obligation.
Do you feel close?
It's hard to say, Boyd. The amount of money, yes, it sounds like a lot. Look at the historical context. The testing at Bikini in the 12-year period from 1946 to 58 cost upwards of $10 to $15 billion in dollars at that time. The cost of a cleanup is a minuscule part of that testing. Even today, we appropriate a tremendous amount of money for underground testing, and the cleanup is just an integral part of finishing up that process at Bikini.
But Mr. Hills says the government's willing to pay for the cleanup. What's your complaint?
I am delighted to hear what Mr. Hills is saying this morning on the Today Show. I would like to get Mr. Hills together with my clients, put down on a piece of paper how we would proceed. We've been litigating for 6.5 years. This is a time when perhaps we can come together and work out some kind of settlement to proceed. But what we're hearing publicly on the media, I think, requires a follow-through both with the executive branch together with Congress, which is going to be ultimately responsible for appropriating the money, to see if we can move forward on a cleanup. It is certainly music to my clients' ears to hear the commitment, but where's the funding? We don't have it.
The commitment's been in writing for 4 years now, but there's a lot of bipartisan support in Congress for meeting this commitment. I think the real story here is that after 40 years, the United States, not out of legal compulsion, but because we are a good and a moral nation, are going to keep our promise to the Bikini people.
All right, thank you very much. Apparently we've reached an agreement here on the Today Show this morning. We'll be back in a moment, but for now, this is Today on NBC.